Hello YouTube, I'm Connor with Airsoft DC, and today we're going to be covering part 5 of an introduction to Airsoft. Now you may be wondering why I have this blue beret with the communist pin on it. Actually it's not communist, it's Soviet Russian. Now the reason why I am is because we're covering not a very important part, but yet still equally as important to your class.
And nonetheless, very entertaining.
Today we are covering impressions. Now, you may be wondering, what is an impression? Well, an impression is the style of field, sniper, or even CQB you want to do. As an example for CQB, at least in my case, if I were going to do CQB in a Russian style, I'd do it as a Spetsnaz, and do some sort of Spetsnaz unit, or even MVD. Now, MVD is essentially the KGB, and if you don't know what the KGB is, either look it up, or it's just like the secret police. Anyway, moving on. I chose to do a Russian VDV loadout. That's the airborne unit designated by my patch. And this patch also. So, that's how I wanted to do. So I am doing more of, like, soon after the Soviet Union fell, but not as modern as today. However, I may change that, due to the patches are more modern, even though the pin is not. So, I chose to go with the Russian impression. And I chose the style, and so I'm modeling myself after that. Arrow, would you like to come and present yours?
Yes, I will. As you can see, I'm not in a uniform right now. I decided to go with the bomber jacket, just for sake of video purposes. But in the United States, as you can see, he was wearing a Russian camouflage known as Flora. It is often called Russian woodland, but it is not. What woodland is this. This is the most common form of all camouflage you will find in basically any United States Army, Navy, or Army surplus store. Now, you will find different camouflage in other places depending on where you live. If you have military surplus stores, you may find it based on whatever country you're in, or anything like that. I used to go with woodland, but I kind of outgrew this particular uniform, so I thought that's a good opportunity to find something different. I now own Marpats in a desert style. If you don't know what Marpats are, it's the newer digital camouflage that the United States military has essentially fully adopted. This is not as popular and is a little harder to find, but is very cool. Now, the idea of impressions isn't necessarily going to change the gameplay, but it does make things a little more interesting. Popular impressions include things from World War II, it includes American military, in Connor's case Russian. Often people will choose a nationality or something that reflects how they feel, or they'll choose something that they just find cool. That's why a lot of people choose German uniforms from World War II. It's not because they're Nazis, it's because they like the look of the uniform. Now, you may be asking yourself, why do that when you could just put on any old camouflage? The reason is, it's mostly just for fun. You really don't need to dress out in any particular fashion. It's not technically necessary.
You could go as Arrow is wearing right now.
Yeah, you could essentially wear an old leather jacket, which I have done before. It actually works pretty well. Leather's thick enough, it's cowhide, so...
Oh, plus you can fit mags in your pockets. That's pretty cool.
And I got this cool little inside pocket, too.
Pistol pocket.
I know, right? Perfect for scenario games. That's another thing we can bring up. Scenario games. Now, you've seen probably before, if you've done much research into Airsoft, games where they split up people basically based entirely on their loadouts. You'll have Russians fighting NATO, you'll have Nazi Germany fighting American.
I've seen Japanese ones too.
You've seen Japanese uniforms. So you'll get a lot of games that are strictly based on the type of impression that you choose to go with. That's
a big one over in the UK right now.
Vietnam is a new wave in the UK that seems to be spreading and is very popular. Which is, well, it just depends on how you feel. Now, also, depending on exactly what you choose, also depends on the price. As you can see, I went with woodland. A whole gear loadout with woodland probably cost me about just a little over $10, just because of the affordability. I'm going to take this over to Connor because, well, he's got stuff to say.
Now, Arrow went with Woodland, which cost, about $20 to get a full set. However, I took the expensive and kind of more creative, at least for where we live, route, and I did Russian. Now, just for this uniform, it costed me $90 to ship from St. Petersburg all the way to here in our hometown in California. And then I had to pay extra money for patches, such as the two I have on, and I still have to get another patch. I paid more money for my beret, about $20 for it, when I could have, bought an American BDU cap for $5. So this is actually a more expensive route, but it's also more diverse, and you don't see it very often. And you'll see patterns such as KLMK, which is kind of cool. It's like a Russian, digital, but it's not digital. It's more of like digital leaves. Sorry, I heard a plane above. There's also ones like VSR, which kind of look like this, but not exactly. They're a little bit more yellowish. So, that's what I decided to do, and it's more of a costly route, but it's cool in the same sense.
Now, we have this whole time talked to you about uniforms, and that is a big part of impressions. But it's also important to know, based on your impression, is probably going to decide what gun you choose to play Airsoft with. At least the format and style. It doesn't necessarily choose what type of gun you get, but it certainly does influence what you own. For instance, I had an American loadout for a while, so it was kind of important for me to have an M4 M16 style weapon, Armalite, if you will. Connor went with the Russian design, so it was pretty imperative that he actually owned an AK style weapon, and based on his era, also decided what type of AK he should own. Same with my style of era, which was post-Vietnam, more into modern day. Now, if you choose to get now based on your class, such as CQB or sniper, also decides what gun you should choose. This is the fun part of it because you get a lot of options. You get to decide what you want to go for, and it really gets you into the mood for playing because it kind of puts you into a scenario, especially if you're playing those type of scenario games like NATO versus Russian or something. So gun, uniform, patches, price, these are all things you need to consider when considering your impression that you choose to play Airsoft. It's a lot more fun, and it makes it a lot more interesting. This is Arrow and Connor with Airsoft DC and an introduction to Airsoft. Have a nice day.